Hi everybody, it's Sarah. Today we're going to talk about self-sabotage in regards to your intuition. Could you be self-sabotaging your intuition or inner guidance? Probably. So for this week's video, I have compiled a few ways that I've noted this manifesting in my students and my clients' lives, and I thought I would share this with you so that you too can move past self-sabotage. Of course, this is my take on the subject, and because of that, it may not resonate with everyone, and if it doesn't resonate with you, no worries, just pass it on by, and I do hope you find what you're looking for. So I invite you right now to pause and take a moment. Consider with me what your life would be like if your intuition played a bigger part in your decision making. What would happen if you learned to tap into your intuition? What if you had that guidance every day? How different would your life be? How simple would it be to know where you should apply for a job or where you shouldn't apply for a job, who you should date, who you shouldn't date, or when you should move house? You may have experience with people who seem to have this innate ability down. It just really looks effortless. They just tune in and they get an answer and they move forward with their life. And it's really amazing when it works like this. But why isn't it working like that for you? Could it be that you're self-sabotaging? Carl Jung said, intuition does not denote something contrary to reason, but something outside of the province of reason. I think a lot of people have the false idea that intuition works against logic or is not as worthwhile as logic. And you may have even heard people say or read where people made this kind of declaration, such as, intuitive knowing, intuition, inner guidance, all goes against logic and therefore is rubbish or at least not as valuable as logic. But actually they work together and everyone has the ability to tap into this inner knowing. And with practice, we can learn to develop both logical thinking and our intuition, and we can work with both. Most of us live very fast-paced lives, full of stress, full of multitasking, full of never getting everything done. We're always in a hurry, we're always in a rush, and we're just never still. We're taught that we have to keep moving, keep hustling, and hurry up. So much so that we don't take time to check in. We don't take time to listen to our intuition. I often have people tell me that they get intuitive insights or flashes when they are washing their hair or when they're doing laundry or folding towels or driving, when they're basically having to focus on one thing and not operating in a stressed out, overreaching way where they're doing, multiple tasks. Think about that. If you slowed down and you did only one thing, maybe just watch this video and did nothing else, wouldn't it be much easier for you to connect with your intuition? Another thing that we do is we often overlook symbolism in our daily lives. We need to be open to the possibilities. We also need to journal or at least note when these things happen. Are you seeing repeating symbols, repeating numbers like 1111 or 1212? Are you hearing the same phrase over and over, and are people then repeating it back to you? Like, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Is that coming up in books and magazines and television shows, as well as something that you catch other people saying? Perhaps it's a message, especially if you've been asking for clarity. So anytime there's a repeating theme, a repeating phrase, number, melody, whatever it may be, we do need to note it, and we need to know what's going on around us. For instance, you hear a song on the radio that reminds you of someone, and then the next text you receive is from that person, and it comes out of the blue. It's not someone you've been having a conversation with, right? So I think it's important that we note it down. You might be surprised at how often this happens, but we're just not consciously aware of it. And by being more focused and intentional with it, writing out every time it happens what we're doing, what the situation is around us, or maybe what we're asking about or for, we then learn how to speak this language of intuition. One that I see happening quite often with my clients is we let our egos control us and insist on being in charge and controlling everything around us. So if it doesn't fit the narrative of the ego, it doesn't happen. It's not real. It's not valid. The ego is threatened by the presence of your intuition, because that means you could operate without it, without making ego-based choices, without having ego-based reactions too. I've often seen the ego use magic to prove magic doesn't exist. Think about that for a while. And oh, the birds have started back up again, so I do apologize for the nature sounds in the background. Something else I see in clients is, have you ever confused intuition with fear or wishful thinking? And this is a really common problem. When we stay in our heads and let our emotions control us, we lose the gift of what our intuition can offer. So if you find yourself often second guessing yourself or wondering if it's your imagination or if this is something you're dreaming up, then you know that you're probably in your head too much. Now, that's not to say we don't need discernment, because we do. We always need discernment. And that's why we need to practice intentional thinking so that we're just not a slave to our mind. We do have some control over it. But if you're worried that you are imagining it or that you're overemphasizing something, then keep a journal. Keep a journal and really track what you're thinking and what's happening around you. Another thing is we continue to associate with people who don't believe in intuition or want to use it. Now, why is this important? Well, intuition is contagious, but so is lack of intuition. If you're surrounded by a group of people who are not open to this, then it will impact you. We know it will, because you're not going to be as likely to talk about it or to act on it, because you might be fearful that someone may question why you made the decisions you did or why you're doing what you're doing. And you don't want to have to explain it to people who don't value or understand intuition. Intuition is a dynamic tool that a lot of successful and very intelligent people use. So if you're surrounded by a group of people who considers themselves to be intellectual or successful or both, then there shouldn't be an issue. And if this is an issue for you, I would suggest that you read as many biographies as you can of successful people. And in the meantime, why not just Google, do successful people use intuition? I think you might be very surprised at the results. And if you're trying to become more successful in your life, this is a tool that's at your disposal. So why aren't you using it? One more obstacle that keeps showing up with my clients, and it could be something that is perhaps impeding your own intuition. For some reason, we think we can force intuition. Well, the more you're open to it, the more you'll be able to note the ability, and it will be easier to tap into it for sure. But it's also something that can't be forced at will, at least not in the beginning. But for some reason, we think we can, and when it doesn't show up, then we dismiss it completely, which is the equivalent of buying a piano and thinking you can play it just because you purchased it. So the first time you sit down in front of the piano and you're not able to play Tchaikovsky, you think, this piano's broken. I'm never going to play piano again. So think about it. Intuition comes where and when it's invited, but not on demand. These feelings tend to come on suddenly, though they aren't always strong or overwhelming. Most of the time, I find intuition is very subtle. It's a very subtle voice that we cannot hear if we're multitasking, if we're being busy all the time. It's not something that's going to fight for our attention. Sometimes it may be a feeling, sometimes it may be a flash of an image, or perhaps it will show up connected to a memory or the thought of a person. So this is something we have to learn to understand. We have to decode the message, and we have to understand what the symbolisms represent, etc., etc. So it's going to take a bit of practice. So obviously, the first time you commit to tapping into your intuition, the message may not appear or it may not be clear, but that doesn't mean you should give up. So many people are under the false impression that you don't need to learn, that you don't need to build these skills, you don't need to let go of some habits to master your intuition, and that it should just happen fully formed and accessible at every turn, and if it doesn't, it's not valid, which is very black and white thinking and is very ego driven. So rather than let the ego take over, I invite you to continue studying about intuition. And perhaps with a little practice and a little coaching, you too can see the wisdom of using this thing we call intuition. I hope this shed a little bit of light on how we self-sabotage our intuition. And I hope you liked and found this video helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments section below. And of course, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Stay tuned for more videos. Reiki Blessings. Bye-bye.